Welcome to Success at Scale with Triple G Ventures. When you're recruiting, when you're putting teams together, because you don't just recruit necessarily one person. I think one of your strengths, if I understand correctly, is really looking at the whole of a company, of a situation, of a problem you're trying to solve, and putting the right people behind it. And to me, that kind of comes to character. I think character probably plays a big role. And so, what kind of character attributes do you look for when you're putting teams together or looking for
Culture.
people?
So every company, every business has its own culture, its own style, its own way of doing business, own way of talking to the market, almost its own engineered mechanism of how it functions as a business. You're
Right.
familiar with the concept of a sales orientated push business and other businesses which may be much more about their service and a marketing led position, and sales just happen, they just follow. And sometimes it's a technology business or it's an engineering business, and the cultures of each of those businesses are very different. So from that point of view, we look at each project or each assignment or each company we're working with and gradually assimilate and understand their own cultural method. The other piece is universal from my point of view, which is that, whether we're recruiting for our own business, and trust me, it's just as hard for us to recruit for ourselves as it is for other people. Recruitment is by definition not a science completely, and it's not always easy. Intelligence, enthusiasm, and stability. And if you think about that, it sounds really simple and really sort of generic, but if you think about it, any one of those things that you don't have creates potentially enormous problems. Intelligence, I don't necessarily mean academic intelligence. I mean, smart, common sense, intelligence in the domain and the role and the discipline that you're working in, which means you'd have to have knowledge, you have to have technical skills. The stability piece is both, life, and it's also an emotional thing where you have an emotional IQ, which needs to help you function in a team and sometimes deal with frustrations or deal with conflict. And then the enthusiasm piece is just that, well, you're the guy, the enthusiasm piece, you need to have that constant, not necessarily positivity, but outlook and energy and desire to participate, to contribute. And if you've got those three things, I say this, and I don't generally say it glibly, it's true. You can have those three things and almost have nothing else, and you will be an asset to a business. You can come in with no prior knowledge, no network. If you've got those three things, you will learn, you will contribute, you will be valuable. So for me, at a general level, those are the attributes. At a cultural piece with it for a business, it's really hard to just sum it up. And we had a call the other day with a client, and they were very, very clear that they didn't want, a kind of individual rock star. They didn't want, someone who's going to be all about their own performance, their own goals, their own ambitions. But another company might be quite the opposite. They might say, we really want people who can be individuals, autonomous, have all generate their own drive and be 100% target driven. So the cultural thing is very unique to a different individual business.
You're touching on another topic, which is culture. And I know so many companies are really concerned with, how do they build the culture that makes sense for that, company or situation. How do you think about culture in general? And what does it mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? I mean, I think of it as meaning behaviors, personality, values. And values is very important for a business and a team to have a clear set of values and also objectives. And I think it feeds closely into the individual qualities that make somebody successful and have purpose. And that's so applicable at the moment, probably more so than ever, when we have this incredibly disrupted world with chaos, with unpredictability, with a lot of challenges for individuals and companies, where everyone's thinking, what's around the corner, what's next, and it comes down to this question of why and purpose. And I think if the why and the purpose at the heart of the business is clearly articulated, clearly understood, and constantly thought about, then the business has a clear vision, it has a rationale to exist, and it has a backdrop against which to make decisions and to set strategy. If that purpose and that why isn't there or isn't valid, and it's really just something else, which may be about we just need to make money, or we want to, invent cool products.
Yeah.
That's if that's the why, then that can work on its own, but it has to sort of hang together with a vision. And as recruiters, from our point of view, our principal why is making sure that we can help individual people on their careers, their professional journeys, and we can help companies build and sustain and maintain the best possible teams they can have to achieve their business vision and their business goal. And that's the enjoyable piece, and that's the bit that makes the business sing, excuse the analogy, but it is about making businesses sing, and making people work together, which comes back to the musical thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny to me. Like, the more I talk about it, look, I've read all these books, I've studied this, but for me, it's like, it's actually relatively simple. I had a call yesterday with a client, and one of my employees was saying, like, okay, I don't know if how I feel about this, getting on this call. This is a new thing for me, and I don't know. And I just said, you know what? Let's just have some fun together, and I think when you boil it down, if you're feeling good, right? How easy is it to make someone else feel good? And then if we're talking about a deal and you feel good, right? It's like it becomes kind of this inertia that you can't stop. The same applies to music. If I show up on a gig and I'm not feeling good, it doesn't work. But if I show up and I'm feeling good, and I want everyone around me to be successful, and it just brings it up, it's like, wow, it kind of works. Even when the skill may not be there, right? Sometimes it overrides that skill. Now, that's not to say that skill isn't important, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Let's be a little bit more practical. Like, are there any people that that you've studied, that you look up to, that you've seen, that like do all of these things we're talking about really well?
Is an interesting one, which perhaps you wouldn't expect me to say, but in my earlier career, I was involved with. In fact, I was even employed by Harman for a while. Sidney Harman is a name that's synonymous in the industry.
Mm.
Company was a much smaller, much younger business. JBL was a brand that emerged, in the 50s and on. And I think Sidney Harman became this incredible sort of iconic almost name and brand in the business. It's probably having great sort of strength and vision and purpose, but also knowing what he doesn't know, knowing what he didn't know, and being comfortable and willing to have others around him to delegate, to invest authority and in other people, and not be too closely managing all of the detail, building teams of good people. Jack O'Donnell is another person I think of, who
Yeah, phenomenal.
way back when Newmark was much smaller, and it was Newmark and Vestax, and it's grown into this hugely powerful and significant player in our industry within music, with all of the brands, some of the acquisitions. And Jack stayed at the helm of that business, and it's now, I don't know how many times bigger than it was even 20 years ago. Other examples. So here's another one. Phil Dudridge, who's another iconic figure in the pro audio world, certainly. Founded and grew the Soundcraft business. Then got involved in Focusrite when it was still a much smaller, younger business after Rupert originally created the brand, and has grown Focusrite into almost an empire now. With Novation, with acquisitions of Adam Audio, with Martin Audio. Again, growth, leadership, strength of purpose and skills, but absolutely willing to bring on other people and not be totally themselves controlling and hands on all of the elements. So
thank you again for joining us, and you're the man, Richard. Be well, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it, and I wish I could come and have a play.